I'm just sitting here watching the clock tick by, the big clock on the wall. It's actually not on the wall; it's on a shelf, but it's a big clock nonetheless. And I realize, hey, we can get started. We're all here. MG '05 Mustang is here. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I got your name inverted. Sorry about that. DePaul 31, good friend of mine, of course, checking in. Roxananti suggests we could fall forward and spring back to see how that worked out for us. Solid Pixel. Steve G. Yeah, it does feel like we're starting an hour earlier. If you're just going off your body clock, which I think isn't a bad song by some disco singer back in the no, maybe not. Larry Newcomb checking in from El Reno, Oklahoma. El Reno. Sometimes I listen to myself, reminds me that the Bad Boys were the hot basketball team, the Pistons, what they called them the Bad Boys back in the day. They won back-to-back championships. And I was in Los Angeles going to law school at that time. And I used to wear my Pistons shirts to class, and it annoyed me, annoyed people around me because a couple of my good friends were locals who were really, really big Lakers fans. I wore them year round. I didn't just wear them during basketball season. Bob Blah Blah suggests we could have antics or shenanigans. Mark says, of course, we could have tomfoolery. If your last name was Foolery, would you dare name a child Thomas? I'm just curious about that. William Page checking from Odessa, Texas. Mark Miller's in the house, as are a lot of people. M. Kolba from Milwaukee, Embermist 69. Hi, Stephen All. Prodigal Stranger. You're watching Lehto's live. Give me a ping. One ping only. I understand there's flaws with that movie, but The Hunt for Red October is one of the best assembled movies of all time. The way it's put together, the way it's paced, the way things happen, it's got great actors and so on. But it's a great story. There are some issues with the plot. Don't worry about that. One ping only. Michael Wallace is in the house. Carl's Corner there as well. That's Body Rock, not Body Clock. Elma Ford. Is it Elma, Michigan, or just a coincidence? Hope you're doing well, and I'm doing very well. I hope you are as well. Todd Long, good almost afternoon counselor. So you must be a little bit west of us someplace. Scott Summers doesn't remember the Pistons winning the championship. You're a young man, my friend. Enjoy the youth while you have it. Rocco Valente is saying hello. George Booth says, hopefully this will be the last time we have to change our clocks. I like daylight savings time, but that could just be me. Million Mile 22 RE, Stevie. Is that, or are you just doing lots of E's there? Love your channel. I've learned so much about the law. Any recommendations for learning more as a hobby and where I should start? Checking in from Marin County, California. Boy, it's hard to know where to start. It depends on what kind of law you're interested in. But the only law books I'm really familiar with are the law books that are too dense for anybody to want to get through unless you've got a reason to do it. But most of our laws, believe it or not, begin with the Constitution. So perhaps try to find some neutral books about the Constitution that is not books written by somebody who's at the far end of the spectrum on either end of that. Discussions with ECML. Steve needs to do two rare things. Drive a Cobra over to a Ponderosa. Well, there are Ponderosas around. I haven't been to a Ponderosa probably like 40 years, if that. Let's go to a Howard Johnson's while we're at it. Elma Ford is in, I'm guessing, Antwerp, Iowa? Oh, excuse me, Ohio. Michael M., hello again from Oregon. And there we go. JT Adventures, yes, please. One ping only. JP Boileau is checking in from sunny Columbia, South Carolina, and it's always a safe bet with JP that he's either making beer or working on Jeeps. And sometimes I think he does both at the same time. But JP is the guy that got me my Jeep. I had it out today. I'll drive around this afternoon. It's going to warm up today. It's going to be hitting the 50s. In fact, it's 48 right now. And it's a nice day to take a Jeep for a drive. Large Paws checking from South Haven, Michigan. South Haven's kind of over this way. There's a Grand Haven and a South Haven. Jim's camera at dawn blasted auto incorrect. MHOA is 285 Kelvin and cloudless in Denver, Colorado. Andy Evans, morning. Grew up with Holly Bush. Yakima checking in. Frank JC the third says yesterday at this time it was 11:56, and it seems so long ago now, doesn't it? Gray Geezer's 1 vote against daylight savings time. Knock Knock 1975 says, "Hey Steve, it annoys me that anyone with the responsibility of SCOTUS could allow the injustice of rights to be violated. In the theory, that law needs to percolate some more." In reference to a video I put up, I think yesterday, or the day before. And I agree. I think that the Supreme Court should do its job, and especially when there's a split in the circuits. If you got one circuit doing this and one circuit doing that, it literally means that something is legal here but illegal here, just because they're in different states. And that's what they're supposed to fix. I think. 50 degrees here in Ames, Iowa. This is Mind Bend. I got friends in Iowa, and they tell me about the wild temperature swings. And I, I always think of Iowa as being south from where I am. I think technically speaking, it is, but it doesn't feel that way. I think because of how it's located and so on. Lewis Browning, I did not get the GPX. I did not go out to my mailbox, PO box the other day. I will get that probably today or Monday. Thinking Impaired, good morning from California, by the way. Thank you. Mary Hain, I'm guessing hello from Central Minnesota. I love your show and your book reports. Curious here, do you read your owner's manuals from cover to cover? I don't. I skim them, and I often refer to them when I have problems and questions. But I've always enjoyed it when I bought a used car and it still had the owner's manual in the glove box. I've always appreciated that. But nowadays, it's all online. You can find anything you want online. And as Jay Leno often jokes about, the user's manual or the owner's manual back in the 50s would say things about, like, how to adjust your valves. And now it says things like, please don't drink the contents of your battery. So they're very different than they used to be. Ram 50 V8, 26 miles north of St. Louis. Andy Evans, has he done a crazy Ivan? The next one will be a starboard. Lewis Browning, Michigan State is crushing Michigan. Well, if it's not in football, I'm not really following it, so I apologize. G. Vokes checking in from Albuquerque. From time to time, I'll be quirky, Jake Lyon, hey, Steve, I'm glad I caught it this week. Cold Trickle, there's a Ponderosa in Coldwater, Michigan. Really? Yeah, Coldwater's a neat little town. It's kind of down there. It's kind of towards the border down here. I actually met a guy who spent some time doing radio in Coldwater radio station. Scott Summers says definitely younger than you, referring to me, but wasn't it late 80s they won? Yeah. Bay City, I believe, still has a Ponderosa. Yeah, somehow those places can hang on in the smaller towns for some odd reason, probably less competition or something. I don't know. Duncan Campbell, good morning, Steve. Are you starting early? Our Australian friends don't know about daylight savings time. Today we start daylight savings time where we pushed our clocks 1 hour forward, so it gives us an extra hour of light in the evening. So Gilbert says there's a Ponderosa in West Branch. Is there really? See, I should know that. I stop in West Branch like 8 times a year, but I don't stop and sit down and eat. I always hit the drive-throughs. So, there's a McDonald's and a Burger King and a Wendy's and an Arby's and you name it. All the drive-throughs are there. But I wouldn't stop and hit a Ponderosa because it kind of defeats the purpose. Big Kappa, sunny at 55 in St. Louis. Prodigal Stranger says if you need your owner's manual, you shouldn't be driving. Well, have you seen the control panel with an infotainment center on a modern car and you're trying to figure out where they hid something? So I can tell you right now that in the last Explorer I had, the control to heat the steering wheel was so buried deep inside it, I didn't know that I had that ability for about a year. And now there's a button on the dash, and there was not a button on the dash in 2019. And so you had to actually go and dig through the owner's manual to find out where you could find that. Jake Lyon, what do you know about patent law? Not much. That's actually something I did not take anything to do with patent law in law school. Did some copyright stuff, but no patents. I don't know anything about it other than I've looked at patents and I'm fascinated by them. The cool drawings and stuff are pretty neat. Oh, Gilbert Jagot says I bought a used snowblower, found the manual online, and everything is if equipped. Yeah, that's the other thing. So Bob Bondi, I bought the song Rip It Up after your mention. I always have liked the sound of the Moog synthesizer. And yeah, I mentioned that in a video or possibly a live stream or both. That is a band called Orange Juice um, uh, with Edwin Collins as the lead singer before he was famous. And they had a song called Rip It Up, which was put on an independent label in England. And I discovered it by reading a book about independent labels in England. And what's funny is if you go there now, underneath the song, all the comments are, hey, how many people are here because of Steve Lehto? And the entire discussion is how bad my musical tastes are. This guy, he doesn't know good music. This song sucks. And I never said that anybody else had to like it. I just said I found it, I liked it. But hey, I'm glad to see someone else found it and they liked it also. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the moral support. Thank you. Thank you. Kyle Kowalski says Gaylord has a Ponderosa also. Gaylord, of course, is north of Grayling on the trip up north. And trying to think last time I bailed off at Gaylord. It's been a while. But I used to actually go up to Grayling and then cut across to Traverse City, so I didn't spend as much time in Gaylord back in the day. Dan Boyd is finishing assembling his first ever ground-up computer. I assume you mean from the ground up, not that it's been ground up. The English language is special that way. Daniel Kester, hello everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. You said good, but something good works too. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. DePaul 31 also need to reference the owner's manual to decipher warning light meanings. Yeah, like for instance, how many cars are on the road right now where if your gas cap is not tight, you can get a check engine light? Like what? Why would that be? If you actually have something that can detect that, why do you have a check gas cap light? I mean, I'm sure there's a reason for it. MZB about studio in the background. Cool. Yeah, that's the actual studio. The desk I'm sitting at right now is when I shoot the video there, I step over here, edit it, and upload it, and then I'm done for the day. JP says, read your owner's manual would be a great name for an alternative rock band. Daniel Kester is a Canadian robot lady in the house. She is not. I just spoke to her 10, 15 minutes ago. She's busy. She'll be back next week, she says, and she can explain it all then. Roxanne Auntie says, apparently I need a wife manual. Do they come with them? Doug Jones, did you see where Sunwing stranded a couple for 5 days and charged them $50 to change their flight? No, I'm not even sure who Sunwing is. Is that Canadian or something? So, D Wood is heading to Pinconning in a bit. And Pinconning is a neat little town that, for some odd reason, has a reputation for cheese. Cheese. Somewhere I've got a picture of myself standing next to a gigantic mouse and a block of cheese in Pinconning. MHOH says you need a properly working gas cap to pass emissions in Colorado. Yeah, Michigan doesn't have those things, those kinds of emissions and safety checks and all that stuff. Janie Segrest, how many people did not realize it was time change this morning? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. I had somebody check in earlier and say I forgot about it until I saw your heads up where you said spring forward live. So Peter Mandix points out that the gas cap is an emissions thing. I understand that. My point simply is that if your check engine light comes on, it can be 75 different things. You might not realize that one of them is a loose gas cap unless you read the owner's manual. Zach says, I think the wife manual is in the glove box. Oh. Now a curmudgeon asks, does NHTSA have emergency ingress or egress requirements for vehicles? That's the question I was wondering also, because it would sound to me like a safety issue if you got trapped inside your vehicle. And I've mentioned that, the Viper has an emergency thing that you reach up over here that'll help you get out if you lose electricity for some reason. So Mexican Spec wants to jump the gun and know what color Solo cup I'm using. By the way, it's not even a Solo cup. I just discovered they're Hefty cups. Hefty. And I guess Hefty makes garbage bags and other plastic things so they can make these kinds of cups. But we'll call it a Solo cup. Mustang MG05 says the mouse and cheese is still there. Kraft used to have a big presence in pinconning. Now it's Heinz. Well, I mean, that's the middle of farm country. I know there's a lot of farmers in that area, a lot of farmland. I'm just not sure what vegetables they have there. Sub GR 77. I want to know, are you still letting things percolate? I was going to mention, for those of you who are Seinfeld fans, you remember there's an episode where Kramer was having an issue with his body. I'm not going to get into it because I don't need to, but he was saying he's having issues because his insides were percolating. And I couldn't think of a way to get that into my video without going too far off course. So yeah, Mexican Spec, we can still call it a Solo cup. Yeah, absolutely. Solo cup is it's like a term of art, like Kleenex. Oh, Jeff Massey, wife manual can be bought with a $20,000 ring. Yeah, but does the manual work after that? Oh, Carl's Corner, the door won't open, a new Hertz video. They rent you a car that you can't get out of. David Hastings, my F-150 doesn't have a gas cap. Are you talking about the new modern ones? Because like my new Explorer and the previous one did not actually have a gas cap. When you put the filler in there, it swings the door open that is supposed to shut airtight when you're done. But it makes it a pain to put gas in if you're using a gas can. Now, Gilbert has no gas cap either, but is yours new or old? Because you could just take your old one and throw it away and not have one either. Jim's camera at dawn says $20,000 ring is the wrong bait. It'll catch the wrong fish. Some of you know, of course, I've got Finnish background. I like things Finnish. And there's a Finnish lure company called Rapala. And they make all kinds of cool stuff, including they make knives. I've got a Rapala knife on the set someplace. I got 3 of them, actually. 4 of them. And Rapala makes lures for fishing. And I saw a poster for Rapala. And I wish I could get a T-shirt that says it, but I sure I can find one eventually. And it just says, Rapala, take a fish boating. That's the greatest tagline ever. Old paint, but can you operate a manual, wife? See, that's the thing. Kids nowadays don't know how to operate the manual versus the automatic. Oh. D. Wood, there were several cheesemakers in the Linwood and Pinconning area. My dad worked for one before he went to Korea. Yeah, so I guess at one point in time they were making the stuff there. Do they still make it there or just kind of hung on at that point? Gilbert says it's an old 09 with no gas cap. So what, you tossed it? I mean, come on. You can go to Amazon and buy a new one for like $10. It'll be on your front porch tomorrow, and it could be on your car 5 minutes later. Jeff, 1618, I'm hooked on Rapala. Jay Klein, it's 53 and sunny in Cincinnati. No one's ever late, my friend. Anybody who shows up is here. Harry seldom have to use a long funnel. Yeah, they actually make an adapter you can use, and it's a pain. So, NZXT123, I love the Rapala shirt. Yeah, I actually wore a Rapala shirt on camera, black with red, just Rapala. And I know a lot of people are going, Rapala, what's that? Oh, NZXT, what size shirt do you wear? Double XL. And this comes up about once an episode of live. XXL. And if you're inclined to get me a shirt, please, nothing obscene, nothing political, but you can send it to me and I will do my best to wear it on camera. Can't promise how many times or anything like that. Send it to the P.O. box right there. Double XL. I'm husky. I've been weeding out shirts. So I've got some shirts I realize I've been wearing for 7 years, 8 years. King of Shadow Arts, are you of the opinion everyone should know how to do basic maintenance? Yes. And I also think everyone should know how to change a flat tire, for instance. I've seen someone by the side of the road looking at their car in confusion because they didn't know how to change this, change a flat tire. Now, some modern cars you might not have a spare or something, but the point is you should understand the concept. VTS now says my '09 Lincoln didn't use a gas cap either, just a flapper. Really? They go back that far? Because I'm trying to remember when I first noticed it. But Lee Kincaid, who does the humorous stings at the end of your video? That would be the Canadian robot lady. Her name is Heather. She often joins us in the live stream. She's not here today, but she'll be here next week. And she also does the intros, obviously. And she also does my voicemail on my office phone. NZXT123, you should do a mailbag unboxing video. I used to do those. I did those a long time ago, but they don't do that well, ratings wise, numbers wise. Bob Blah Blah says a Lexus dashboard lights up VSC and VSC off, and that means you have a loose or bad gas cap. And Daniel Kester points out my mailing address is also at the end of all my videos, but no one ever makes it to the end. Rebellion 111. Are time changes constitutional? Better question is, are time changes unconstitutional? Because remember, the Constitution limits what the federal government can do, and then it outlines certain rights you've got regardless of what the government says. And then it has the Bill of Rights at the end, which, of course, enumerate those. And then it has, at the end of the Bill of Rights, it says, by the way, things that are not of the exclusive domain of the feds are then designated to states. So the states have their own set of rules. And so I'm not sure that you could find in the Constitution where the feds are given the mandate that they control time zones and so on. Now, for purposes of trains not crashing into each other, we do need some standardization with the time. But with respect to daylight savings time, that's an iffy question as to who would have the final say on that. Because it sounds to me like that would be a states' rights question, but these days, all bets are off. J-Door 8 says, my lug nuts rounded off and I couldn't get them off. Swollen lugs are common as well, I guess. Yeah, I did a whole video. I've done several videos about the swollen lug nuts. They were a particular problem with Ford for a couple of years. And that's just one of those things. Sandra Jones, greetings, Earthlings. Thank you. Oh. Douglas Gaxiola says the greatest kayak fishing video I've ever seen involved a rapala jig, a thresher shark, and a fisherman's chin. Involved multiple other kayakers trying to pull the hook out. Oh, God. Oh. Sting Cool says Arizona doesn't recognize daylight savings time, so it is a state issue. Yeah, but the hypothetical question is what would happen if the feds mandated it? And then the states fought it. Who would win? And that would go to the Supreme Court, and you'd have an issue on there. So, the scooters guy says time zones and related regulations and laws are covered by the Commerce Clause. Well, the Commerce Clause says that the federal government gets to regulate interstate commerce. And the question then is the connection between interstate commerce and time zones and daylight savings time so intertwined that it's got to be controlled by the feds under the Commerce Clause? Harry Seldon says the current issue is that it might be abolished. I know, obviously. And the question is, if it gets abolished by the feds, what happens if a state goes, we still want to do it? And then the question is, what would the feds do? And could they simply mandate it, or would they have to tie it to something? Because remember, there was a time when the feds wanted everyone to drive 55. Okay, talk to Sammy Hagar. And the problem is that speed limits are a local issue. And so what the Fed said is, tell you what, if you don't want to follow us in the 55-mile-an-hour thing, we'll just stop giving you road funding. And all of a sudden, everybody fell in line, except for a couple states that didn't need the money. Maybe one. So, Long 6722, can you tell us what chair you recommend as an office chair? I did an ad for them earlier this week, didn't I? I did an ad on Wednesday for a company called Flexi Spot. Flexi Spot. Look at my video from Wednesday. I'm sitting in a Flexi Spot chair here. That right there is a Flexi Spot chair. I've actually bought 5 or 6 of them. I've got one in my living room. It's a recliner. And I've actually bought them for friends. I love them. King of Shadow Arts says Vin Wiki could never survive at 55. Richadio says you can still have time zones, just abolish. No, I understand that. I was simply pointing out that the first regulation involving times outside of a local area was time zones. There was a time when different cities had their own time zones. I wrote a book about the Italian Hall disaster, and there was a time when Calumet, Michigan was off from Detroit time by 1/2 hour, not an hour, 1/2 hour. And no one, I've never heard anybody give an explanation as to why they did that. But they did. The Swarm says, forgive my tardiness. Again, like I said, anybody who's here is doing better than the people who are not. MH08, we should just all go to UTC. What is that, like is it 1419 right now? Is that how that works? I don't know. I could be wrong. Let's do the math. Something like that. Jay Klein says the county I grew up in was split. In town, the gas station was on fast time. The general store was on slow time, based on where the deliveries came from. And the crazy part about that also is that there are there's a little sliver of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that's on Wisconsin time. And if you look at a map, you'll see all kinds of lines that do not follow state lines. And I know how it got that way. But really, like you couldn't just go, hey, the entire state? No. Okay. So Padres is 13:20 now. Oh, yeah. I was actually doing the math going, but wait. Daylight savings time? No, hang on. Carry the 2. 3 gazinta. Hang on. Bill Van Ram says, I read that China doesn't have time zones. Really? That'd be strange. I'm sure you know that Russia, how many time zones it would cover. I know there's times of the year where the sun is rising in one part of Russia and setting in the other. That's a pretty lengthy country. Try to cannonball that, my friends. Yeah, Art S points out that St. John's is still 2.5 hours ahead, and they are one of the ones that does a half hour off. And I've always thought that was unusual also. But with Calumet, it was actually just a town of Red Jacket. But as a result of that, the local communities picked it up too. But like all the church bells and stuff, they went up at the bottom of the hour for the rest of the state, Janie Seacrest, I'm taking you all on my dog walk this morning. Thank you. Long 6722. When are you doing the Viper giveaway? Yeah, I don't know about that. Stay tuned. I took the Jeep out earlier today, and if it hits 50, I might take the Viper out today. It's a little too cool to take the Cobra out. A little too cold. Little too cold. Dougie Deuce's Antarctica has 24 time zones. You can walk through them all in a few steps if you're in the right place. Yeah. It's kind of hard to get there, though. Blissful Nessence says, my Sundale is wrong. My Sundale. Well, can't you go out and shift it an hour? Michael M says, "Hey, the book reports cost me too much money." Which books did you buy? Oh. Jennifer says that Venezuela is also off by a half an hour because they didn't want to have the time the same as the US. Really? Okay. I don't know if it's Roxanante or Rocinante, but because they watch all your videos with ad blocker. Thank you. Thank you. That's that you're too generous. All I want people to do is watch. I don't get bent out of shape. Um See, Old McDonald has a car, says that same point in the Arctic will have your compass always pointing south. Except if I say that out loud, people are going to go, "Oh, Steve, the magnetic north and the actual polar north are two different things." Oh. Harry Selden says that Michigan City, Indiana, and New Buffalo, Michigan, which is down that way, you sometimes catch a cell tower from the other, and the time on your phone will go back and forth. Yes, that also happens up the north in the Upper Peninsula. Driving near like Ironwood, it'll jump back and forth. I've had my phone do that, and I've also been standing in the starting corral for the Detroit Free Press Marathon, and you can look and see Canada right over there. And all of a sudden, your phone will buzz, and you'll look at it, it'll go, "Welcome to Canada. Extra rates may apply." And it's just a cell tower on the other side picked you up for some odd reason. Chuck Whitehead points out that all shows times have Eastern time zones first. Is that a TV rule? I think it's just a convention they started because I think many of the networks originally were in New York. And so they would give their time and the other times as an afterthought. Of course, I don't know if when TV signed on, they realized how big the markets are going to be in California. But yeah, I remember that when I was a little kid. Eastern, Central, Mountain. Huh? Matthew Hill, I watch on YouTube Premium. Have you ever considered running for judge? No, no. Well, I've considered the idea in that I've decided that it's no. I would never want to run for an elected position. I don't want to. I don't want to go through a campaign. Now, if someone's Steve, we can appoint you to be a federal judge. There's no campaign involved, and you're on the bench for life. I would consider that because federal courts, you don't have to put up with as much nonsense as they do in state courts. D. Wood got that on a trip to Port Huron once. I assume that's because you're bouncing back and forth with Canada over in Sarnia with the cell phones. Art S. Any metal detecting plans? I didn't get out much last year. I got out once or twice. The year before, I got out exactly one time, and on the day I got out, I found an Indian head penny. Talk about a stroke of luck. But I fire the detector up in the summer. I charge the batteries. I throw it in my vehicle, and I'm out driving around to someplace occurs to me. I might jump out and hunt it for a little while, but no actual plans yet. But it's still early. The ground is frozen. It'll be frozen for a little while longer. Austin Blanton on the Supreme Court. I'm here for it. Yeah. I would take a Supreme Court nomination or appointment as well. Although the vetting process in front of the Senate might make me feel like I'm going through some kind of campaign. Hey, Daniel Kester's got a good point. He says, Steve, when you're talking about how to open the door on the Viper, which is that latch behind your head, reminded me of the plane that John Denver died on. And he's talking about the Long Easy that John Denver was flying that crashed and he died. And I saw several videos and documentaries about that, and they are speculating that he ran out of fuel and he couldn't reach the switch behind him that would have turned on or switched tanks, turned on the other tank. And it was an airplane that was relatively new to him, and he probably knew that was back there. But John Denver apparently was a fairly short guy, and so because of the way the Long Easy is configured, I believe he was sitting with something behind him to push him closer to the controls. But It's been a while since I saw it, but thank you for reminding us. An interesting story. Kyle Kowalski says we actually get the welcome to Canada message up here in Alpena when you lose a local signal. So you're getting the signal from across. That's a distance, I would think. Kelikaka Coat, would you consider being a television judge like Judge Wapner or Judge Judy? That would be fun if I got to pick the cases, you know. But unfortunately, the last few times I've seen those shows, it's obvious they're trying really, really hard to find interesting cases. Gucci Poochie, when's the last time you had a ride in a Chrysler Turbine car? It's been about 5 or 6 years now. I was there when Jay Leno's Turbine car was presented to him at the Woodward Dream Cruise, and it was running. I just didn't get a ride in it at the time, but I've driven that car. I've driven 3 of the Turbine cars. So Sandra Jones says that her husband watched a video on another channel and it got him upset because they stopped an innocent driver because they misread his plate, and then it got ugly from there. Yeah. Keith Donaldson, I got a $10 environmental impact ticket in Nevada for doing 140. Is that all you got? In most states, you get arrested for that. Dr. Hafar. Ever been on a ship's degaussing crew? Not much wheeled internal combustion engine rotating vehicle degaussing in this day and age, it seems. I'm shutting up now. I'm not even sure what that is. What are you degaussing? But I do know what a degausser is because that's what you use to erase tapes with. And Dr. Hafar, of course, would be the Steve Martin character in The Man of Two Brains, one of the greatest movies ever made. Sandra Jones, what you said was all reported, but the plane went down in a bad part of the Pacific. I don't think it was that far out, though, was it? Because I thought people on land actually watched it crash. Celtic or Celtic Identity says I got the welcome to Canada signal when I was on top of a building in Dearborn. I screenshotted it and showed it to all my work buddies. Wow. D. Wood, you could revisit the cussing canoeist case in Aranet County. You know what's funny about that is there have been several cases about people being arrested for swearing in public, and I think a couple of them involved guys on canoes. Something about canoes, alcohol, and swearing always go together. So, old paint someone says they degauss the hull. What magnetizes the hull, though? Oh, Sandra Jones says it wasn't that far out, but you can't swim there. Were there like plankton beds and stuff, or whatever that seaweed stuff is that the sea otters play on? Brandon Mitchell, I need a lawyer, dog. So many people do, and there's so few of them. Some states have got none. Cascadia, in a U.S. lawsuit, can a case from a non-U.S. common law country be cited as precedent? It can be cited, but it wouldn't be binding precedent. So there's always different levels of stuff. So let's suppose I'm in Oakland County Circuit Court in Michigan, and I need a case that convinces the judge to rule my way. If I can find a Michigan Supreme Court case on point, boom. If I can't, can I find a Michigan Court of Appeals case on point? Could I find an Oakland County Circuit Court case on point where they wrote an opinion? And if you can't find, I mean, you can go to neighboring jurisdictions. I've tried that before. The Uniform Commercial Code is so similar from state to state. I've pulled cases out of Illinois and said, look, this case has never been ruled on in Michigan, but I found one case in Illinois. Look what they ruled on. And I've had a judge go, I don't care, it's not Michigan. So if you found a precedent from Canada or England or something, you could bring it in and go, here's a ruling, but they're going to go, it's not even a U.S. court. Sorry. So it would be at best instructive, but it would not be binding. So Gilbert says they could possibly train the retired drug-sniffing dogs to become lawyer dogs. What I wonder about is if you're a drug-sniffing dog and you got to go to work every single day and find stuff, and you got rewarded for finding stuff, and then they go, hey, you're retired, go home, go run around the field for a while. Wouldn't you be bored? I want to go out and find stuff. That's what I do, you know? So DePaul says the Earth's magnetic field magnetizes the ship's steel hull. And Old Paint says the steel in the ship will eventually take on a weak magnetic set. Degaussing it neutralizes that. Okay. So, Ryan Jean, have you ever had a case involving a soft sit, especially the private plate on the car trick? I never have, but I've seen them in court. I've actually been in court watching while other cases went before mine, and I've seen judges deal with that, but I've never dealt with that myself. So I've never even been asked. I don't do much traffic anymore. I used to do traffic tickets all the time. The vast majority of them were friends or friends of friends who got, speeding tickets or red light tickets and occasionally drunk driving tickets. So Zach says retired police dogs do not make good pets for exactly that reason. I would think so. Skylar Perron says, hello, Steve, checking in from FV, North Carolina and Wake County on spring break from NC State in Raleigh. Very cool. Very cool. Douglas Gaxioli says, every large naval ship has a degaussing range. Okay. Learn something new every day. Kelikaku says, if Perry Mason were a real-life lawyer, would he have taken a case to defend a soldier in a courts martial as he did in one of the television episodes? I'm not sure if you've got to have a special license nowadays to practice in the military courts, because they use the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ. And if you don't know that, I'm assuming it'd be tough to practice, but you might be able to get sworn in pro hoc vice or something. But I admit I don't know. And it's the kind of thing where you'd want to hire a specialist. There'd be people who specialize in that. But, remember that Perry Mason was set back in the old days, back when things were in black and white. And back in the black and white days, the rules may have been different. So I don't know. Scott says, hey, Steve, I'm a fan and a full-time Turo host with about 20 cars for rent on the app. Regarding the stolen vehicle mishap, it's easy to understand what happened. Happy to answer questions. Well, isn't it what we think? The car was reported stolen, recovered, and then put back into the Turo system, but not taken out of the stolen car police recovery system. So the police see the car going down the road and go, hey, it's a stolen car. And Turo claims that they don't let people put formerly stolen cars back into the system, but I'm not sure how they would stop that. So Lee Kincaid says, when I did a computer support, I would defrag the hard drive and degauss the monitor when they reported slowness. I never even stopped to think about how close my monitor is to my tower. But right now they're a good distance apart. I think I'm probably okay, but that's interesting. Yeah, Southern Torrance is a TV show back in the late 90s called JAG, Judge Advocate General. That's a reference to the attorneys who represent people who are being court-martialed or having legal issues with the military system. Not a band of counts says, when do we get a new model of the Chevrolet Vega? I don't know if people are clamoring for that or not just yet. I actually owned a Vega briefly. A Vega is like just a disposable car. It was just a car. That's all it was. It's not me 07 says, hey, Steve, I'm here. I'm not late, though, because of the clock change. You're late for other reasons. We don't pry. And by the way, I'm going to see if I can pour some Gatorade here without spilling like I did last week, which is embarrassing. Wow. That never happens. Um, so Scott says here the stolen car report occurred because a guest did not return the car. Hosts are instructed to file a stolen vehicle report. Well, so then shouldn't the host have undone that report? Oh, Sam as I am says new monitors don't do that. Only cathode ray. Well, how do you know what I'm using here? I could have a big old monitor that's this deep. Oh, standard deviation reminds us of the Cosworth Vega. Guy down to the end of my street when I was growing up had one of those. Looked cool, but I think it's one of those things on paper made more sense than it actually did in real life. So, yeah, Mexican Spec, the best Vega had a V8. David Palomar says the Vega was a popular car that was given away on game shows. Oh, they sold a lot of them. You know, it was a car that came along at the right price point. I think their goal was to get it out for under $2,000. I don't know if they actually hit that or not. So, Sam as I am says you may be using a 40-inch Mitsubishi 400-pound television for all I know. No, I'm just saying that even back when I had a big old monitor on my desk, it never even occurred to me to think that could mess that up. It never happened, so I must have been lucky. Roach Dog Granny says, "Did Canadian robot voice lady ever record "See You Lehto" for you?" No, but I will get her to do that next time. Oh, now Curmudgeon says Shure is 100 years old this year, referring, of course, to the Shure microphone company. They make other stuff, but the biggest, tallest microphone on my top shelf there is a Shure. It's a big aluminum case with the grate on the front. My favorite looking microphone. I think it looks so cool. Famous old microphone, but they're 100 years old now. It's amazing. Sub GR77, a friend's dad has a Vega that does tens in the quarter mile. Yeah, you shoehorn in the biggest engine you can find and try to get some kind of indestructible differential to put at the rear wheels. And you probably have to tub the back end unless you want to have tires sticking out this far, you know. So Skylar Perone never thought of riding a motorcycle. You know, I'm not. I've driven a motorcycle. I've ridden a motorcycle. I'm just not terribly excited about them. And I'll admit, I'm worried about Michigan drivers. Not me, them. And so I'd be very concerned. You can be the best driver on earth, and some idiot is going, "Oh, I didn't see you there on your motorcycle." So Jerry C says Shure also produces some decent phono cartridges as well. For those of you who are playing the vinyl. Oh. Standard deviation points that Necco wafers are over 177 years old. Oh. Lee Kincaid says degaussing the monitors didn't actually affect the speed, but users were impressed and it made them feel like something was done. Oh no, there's all kinds of things. In fact, I've seen a meme going around recently about some bass player who had a switch on his bass that didn't do anything. When a producer complained about the sound, he go, "Oh, hang on a second," and make a big show of flipping a switch, and then just do it exactly like he done it. And the guy's like, "Yeah, that's the sound I'm looking for." Old McDonald has a car, says no motorcycles this time of the year. They disappear in the potholes. Oh, Hatbox had a Rambler when I was a kid. Always liked that. Bob Blah Blah points out that Necco wafers taste like they're 178 years old. They probably have a shelf life of 200 years. Yeah, Toxic Wheeze. Fun fact, at one point in time, Oreo was the knockoff. They knocked off Hydrox. And I remember years ago doing a live stream, and I said, anybody here have Hydrox? Who'd make a Oreo knockoff taste that bad? And several people weighed in and said, Hydrox was first. Oreos knocked them off. And I'm like, what? And I looked it up, and sure enough, and now the History Channel's got that whole documentary series on food and tell the whole story. So William Kittlestad says, and Twinkies last 177 years. Although Twinkies is Hostess, and the company that was doing that actually went bankrupt, although I think they saved the Twinkie. And then there's also the little chocolate cupcakes they make that are so good. So good. One thing I like about the discussion here is it's so random that people are talking amongst themselves. Sandra Jones says, I've belonged to ambulance services, which I'm sure in context is something entirely different, but out of context, like, that's interesting. The Necco wafers, people are discussing. I seem to recall there was a time when Steve Dahl, the disc jockey in Chicago, someone told him that you could throw Necco wafers into the change basket at the toll stations and would accept them as money. And he said, is this true? And whoever's in charge of the toll baskets had complaints like, people, stop throwing Necco wafers into the toll baskets. It's not money. Yeah, Ember Miss Sickness is a ding dong. No. That's I know what that is. The ding dong and the Twinkie are related, but they also just made a chocolate cupcake. It was cream filled, chocolate coating, chocolate housing, and cream filled. Now I'm out of focus. What's going on there? Hello? Testing. There we go. Oh. Lou T 1501 says it's 55 and sunny in Oregon. Have you tried chocolate Twinkies? I don't think I have. Oh, Sandra Jones says the ambulance comment was related to the other comment about motorcycles. Apropos. Oh, Janie Seagrass says that walk was an experience. I have a Malinois mix who hates other dogs, and it's nice out there were other dogs. I don't have dogs right now, but I had Milo and Wolfie, 2 Shetland sheepdogs, and they got excited around other dogs, but it depended. And there's something weird that dogs do that humans can't understand, because dogs will approach each other and either be friendly or not friendly. And I could never predict how my dogs were going to react around any. Occasionally, they'd freak out over some little dog, or occasionally they wouldn't even care, and they'd encounter like a Saint Bernard and like, hey, what's going on, man? Or they'd freak out. I mean, and so there's some kind of nonverbal, probably chemical communication that dogs have with each other that somehow they know how to escalate. Like, what, we're going to DEFCON 4 over here, and it was insane. Mark Miller, what are those cupcakes called besides cupcakes? I think that's simply what they're called. I think they're Hostess cupcakes. Yeah, Troy built right below. Hostess chocolate cupcakes. Sandra Jones says the new Twinkies are gross. And you should respond to that by saying, I drove an ambulance once. I'm just joking. Joe B. My 14-year-old daughter always asks to listen to that Lehto lawyer dude when she rides with me. I'm guessing she'll never rent from Hertz. I am curious about what a 14-year-old would gain, or what their perception is of what I'm talking about. Because some of the legal issues might not make a whole lot of sense. Is it just that the stories seem interesting, or I'm curious, but that's cool. I very early on, when my channel just had like 30 or 40,000 subscribers, I had a guy send me a note. He said, hey, Steve, my daughter and I listen to you all the time, and she drew this for you. And she drew me this really nice picture of me sitting in front of a microphone. And I had it in my kitchen for the longest time. People go, is that like your nephew, your niece? What's that? I go, No, it's a viewer's daughter. I'll take it. Padres says, shouldn't cookies be called bakies? Well, except of course, and I know this is not what you're asking, but the word cookie comes from the Dutch, and it's one of the few words that we got from the Dutch who settled in the New York City area. Sting cool, she likes your voice. Wow. Doesn't strike her that I speak in a monotone? Oh boy. Yeah, sub GR77 says she probably will never grow up to buy an RV either. Precious Rose, I used to work at a Hostess bakery outlet. My mom used to take us, I used to go with her grocery shopping on the weekends. We'd often swing by there and you could buy cases. And I used to bring them to school for lunch. Devil dogs. D Wood. What is a devil dog? Southern Torrance says that's your new superhero nickname, the lawyer dude. I'll take it. Sandra Jones, would anyone else want to donate to Ukraine? I hope you understand that donation right there that goes to me, right? this isn't a telethon. And I don't want to get into a political debate here. So please do not get political on me. Lawyer dude, I wonder if I could get, hang on, LWYR. Oh. David Persons had a Saab Sonnet when he was younger. It was essentially an engine and powertrain on wheels wrapped in fiberglass. A Saab Sonnet. I can't picture that. It's the Automotive Hostess Cupcake. Daniel Kester says cookie comes from what they used to call ship's biscuits. Okay. Sandra Jones says a devil dog is kind of like a chocolate Twinkie-like thing. Okay. And Precious Rose says the Hostess snacks aren't the same. No, they aren't. What happened was the company, I think, went bankrupt or something. And somebody else came and bought them out of bankruptcy to salvage the name and a couple of their better products. And I think they cheapened them. I think they decided to save some money or something. So, yeah, Hostess makes ding dongs and zinger dingers. Now, zinger dingers doesn't ring a bell. So, oh, Jay Klein says Saab Sonnet, think of the Opel GT. Yes. I know what that is. And Bob Blah says it looks a lot like a miniature Brickland. Which a miniature Brickland? That's like saying I have a dachshund. Well, it's like a dachshund, but it has short legs. Okay. Mrs. Teresa, 1999, is in the house, checking in from Geneva, New York. Hope you have a great week because I'm just listening in this time. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Scott Summers, isn't the Lehto restaurant on Highway 2? That's the place they make cheese? No. They make pasties. They make pasties. And that's what they make there. They also have a location downtown St. Ignace. Oh, D Wood, yeah, remember the Hostess Suzy Q's? Yeah, they basically had like 3 ingredients that just mixed and matched in different formations. A lot like Taco Bell. Oh. Kellikakakoten says, hey, there was a 2-stroke, 2-cylinder Saab about 45 years ago. Is this one of them? I was talking to my friend Mark Lieberman of Nostalgic Motoring the other day. I was at his shop, and he's got a little Messerschmitt car. Really, really cool little thing. But it's comical, but I don't know if I'd want to drive it on the road. And but it's 2-stroke. I go. So does it mix the gas and oil for you? He goes, no. You got to mix your own fuel. Talk about a pain. Solid Pixel. I still don't know what pasties are. Okay, next time I go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, I'm bringing a film crew and I'm going to film myself ordering and eating a pasty. I normally wouldn't want to eat on camera, but I got to show you what a pasty is. It's about this big. It's a pastry outside that's filled with meat, potatoes, carrot, rutabaga, some seasoning, and the meat is usually some kind of beef type stuff. And so it's a meat pie, and it's baked, and you can carry it, and you can eat it like a big sandwich. Or you can put it on a plate and eat it with a fork and a knife. And you can put gravy on it, you can put ketchup on it, or like me, I put butter on it. But they're great. They're really common in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But it's called a pasty. It's a pasty. Bill Van Ram says the Devil Dogs is also a nickname for the Marines. Kalakaku says I made cheese this morning. A gallon of milk made about 1 pound of cheese. I still have a lot of whey left over now. Yeah, I've never made my own cheese. I know you can also churn your own butter, right? Just Jazzy reminds us of a place called King Arthur's Pasties near Flint, Michigan. I've never had one, though, but I've driven by it. I worked at a bunch of radio stations not far from there. Sandra Jones pasties are Cornish in origin. So, yes. Think Cornwall. Travis Hutchins, I put sour cream on pasties. Wait, my mind just got blown. That sounds good. What? What? Oh my God. Mind bend, do you make your own pasties? No. If other people can do it well, I let them. Hatbox, what does rutabaga taste like? It's one of those things that's not used in a lot of recipes, but it has a little distinctive, I don't know how to describe it, but it has a distinctive flavor. And I have a shirt that just says rutabaga across the front. It says Lehto's pasties on the back. And everyone knows, oh, pasties, because that's where you hear about rutabaga being used on a regular basis. David Persons had pasties in certain gentlemen's clubs. He's referring to pasties, believe it or not. And there's actually one of Jay Leno's headline segments where there's a grandmother who's cooking pasties, baking pasties for charity. And it's something like grandma's pasties. And of course, he read it as grandma's pasties, which of course would be funny. Idris Taylor says there's no carrot in a Cornish-style pasty. Some of the ingredients, however, get changed in America, especially because, like, you can get a vegetarian pasty, which, to me makes no sense, but some people do that. Two Left Thumbs is given the propensity of Cornish folk to mine metals. Chances are there were Cornish miners. Yeah, no, that's where they came from. The Cornish miners brought the pasties to the UP, where they're adopted by the locals, but due to the heavy Finnish presence, people always assume that the stuff that was brought there was brought by Finns. No, it was not. So pasties are, in fact, of Cornish origin, and many of the mine bosses were Cornish. So, and Burning Sensations, good to see you, my friend. Aren't pasties a meal for miners? Yes. Although one of the sillier things you've had people say is I've heard people say, yeah, the miners would bring their pasties to work uncooked, and they'd put them on a shovel and cook them over a candle. They were cooked, first of all, and they were brought to work where they'd sit at room temperature until you went to eat it, and you just eat it at room temperature, and it wouldn't kill you. The idea of cooking anything with a candle on a shovel, you couldn't melt an ice cube on a shovel with a candle, okay? So don't even go there. David Person says he was just making a joke. And I understand that, but I'm pointing out that concept does confuse people. I've had people say, hey, Steve, I saw a sign that goes Lehto's Pasties. What's that all about? And they're serious. Yeah, Padres says, a lot of people say, hey, that just tastes just like chicken, and why don't we just have chicken? I've heard that used to describe everything from ostrich to rattlesnake. It's just like chicken. Lion Zookeeper says, stopped at Lehto's on US 2 years ago and asked if they were any relation to you. You responded, they wish. They list you all the time. I'll tell you right now, I stop there 2 to 6 or 8 times a year. I mean, every time I go there, if they're open, I stop. I'm talking about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I talk to them all the time, but they're no relation. But I do tell them, by the way, I'm the guy who stops in all the time. And I talk about pasties every chance I get. Southern Torrance says ostrich does not taste like chicken. I wouldn't know. Oh boy. Jay Klein says, "Hey, frog legs taste like chicken." Mindbend says, "Hey, here's a thought. Next time you're at Lehto's Pasty, see if you can film a short thingy about it." Didn't I just say I was going to do that? I'll bring a film crew. I will. I will. Sandra Jones calls out rhubarb. Yeah, rhubarb is one of those things. I know they make rhubarb pie. What else do they make with rhubarb besides rhubarb pie? So, I guess blueberries. They do wind up in other things, though. Sam as I am says when I was a heavy equipment operator, guys I'd work with would put aluminum foil wrapped food on the diesel exhaust manifolds. But that's different because number one, a diesel exhaust manifold is a lot hotter than a candle. You hear these legendary stories about things that supposedly happened, and you're going, common sense dictates that's not correct. That's just stupid. I can think of other ones, but I don't want to get into it here. So Amber Mist film crew of one or two. Am I counting myself? Oh boy. Idris Taylor, rhubarb and apple crumble with custard. Kelakakus's rhubarb looks like celery, but it's purple and it's sweet. Yes, and it's got a very distinctive taste also. Marjan says that in Arizona it gets up to 125 degrees, but the question is if you put a candle underneath the shovel. LOL, I wouldn't call rhubarb sweet. I don't know if we're talking about when it's been baked into something, but it's been a while. It's been a while since I've had it. Although several people here think it tastes gross and disgusting. Mm. Gilbert the thimbleberries. Oh yeah. I haven't actually gone up picking thimbleberries in a couple of years. Thimbleberries are berries that are literally about the size of your thumb. They taste sort of like raspberries, but they have a better taste to them. And they grow wild in the Upper Peninsula, especially in the Keweenaw. And you can be out there at the right time of the year and literally just stop, walk 5 feet off the road, and just start picking these things. And they're so big and they're not low to the ground either. So you don't have to bend over and you're just eating these things. And what's funny is bears and raccoons love them too. But man, are they good. And thimbleberry jam is the best. And you can buy thimbleberry jam all across the UP. My grandmother used to make it back in the old days. Yeah, Gilbert says like raspberries and cream. Yeah, it's smoother, I guess, what I would say. Marjan says, I'm Iranian or Iranian American, and we love rhubarbs, and we add it to several dishes. Idris says rhubarb comes in a very wide range of sweetness. I had a neighbor who grew it in her backyard. It's all I know is I'd be mowing her yard and I'd see the rhubarb out there. Standard deviations: raccoons love tortillas. Raccoons are omnivorous. They will eat almost and they will enjoy it. Almost anything. There are certain things that they do like. Okay. So if you had a raccoon that you wanted to feed, depending on its age, puppy chow. Oh my God. And it's actually good for them. But they love grapes. They love fruit. They love marshmallows, although marshmallows might not be good for their teeth. I'm not sure if you're worried about the dental care for your raccoon, but so Old Paint 71 says so many times on vacation, my dad would slam on the brakes, throw the car in reverse, and we know he'd spotted a berry patch. Uh, Same thing here. We'd be driving along out in a country road with my mom driving, and somebody yell, "Thimbleberries!" And my mom would over the side of the road, and we'd pile out, and that's what we'd be doing for the next hour or so. Boomer says raccoons love Twinkies. I'd be scared if I thought raccoons had discovered I had Twinkies in my house. Oh boy, I love raccoons, by the way, but I haven't befriended any lately. Daniel Kester says raccoons like onions. Really, it wouldn't surprise me, but I know they have a real tendency to enjoy sweet things. I know that they were always a problem with the farmers who grew cherries up in Traverse City. But cherries and grapes. Oh, they love grapes. Standard deviations: we get deer, ducks, raccoons, coyotes, all in our backyard. So do I. I also have turkeys. In fact, I had 7 turkeys in my front yard yesterday. I had 6 deer in my backyard the day before. Um, I've had foxes in my driveway in the last few months, and also a raccoon about a week ago. Art S, did you ever go morel picking? No. I know people who do, but there's a whole science and art to it, and they act like it's all secret and so on. But I did not. I did not actually partake in that, and I don't know if I trust myself picking fungus or mushroom like things. So, Southern Torin, no raccoons in your garage? No, no. I had a woodchuck in there. That one, he's not come back. Dan Boyd says if you see a raccoon in the daylight, it probably has rabies. I wouldn't say probably, it depends. But raccoons do tend to be nocturnal, and you will occasionally see them around dusk or in the morning, even finishing up for their evening's work. But they will occasionally wander out if they're disturbed or if other things are happening. But if you see a raccoon acting erratically, you got to be very, very careful. It also depends what part of the country you're in, because some parts of the country do not have a problem with raccoons who are rabid, but other parts do. So consult your local authorities. Sam as I am ever have salmon berries. They grow in Washington State, orangey color, hence the name tastes like a cross between a raspberry and a peach. Doesn't taste like the fish. Never heard of them. Never heard of them. Sean Brock feeds them. You feed the raccoons? Believe in yourself, says raccoons love shiny objects but are reasonable. One grabbed my stainless travel mug full of coffee and ran. I chased it. Then I yelled, "Are you going to drink that?" And he dropped the mug. They do say that raccoons are fascinated by shiny objects. Nobody knows why. And they also do wash their food. And if you see a raccoon near water, like either cleaning food or looking for food, it's fascinating. They're fascinating animals. And if you have not read the children's book Rascal, please do. It's an older children's book about a kid around the era of World War One who raises a raccoon, and it's so well written, and it's a good book, and I enjoyed that one too. Sandra Jones says, "You all have been wondering, but I have to leave." I'm assuming you would say you all have been wonderful, but I was wondering also. Jay Klein says the raccoons in his old neighborhood use the storm drains to move around the neighborhood. Yes, they're clever like that. I saw a documentary where they put some tracking collars on some raccoons in, I think, Toronto, and tracked them. And the places they went and how far they traveled were absolutely mind blowing because of, they all over the place. And because we don't see them as often, we tend to think they're not there. And then if you see like footprints, oh, there's a raccoon here. Well, he was there the day before, just there wasn't mud there or whatever. And so in my backyard, I've got one spot where it's low. It rains and it holds water. It's the last place on the property to go dry. And if I go out there right as it's about to go dry, I see footprints for everything. And there's always a ton of raccoon prints out there. So Daniel Kester says raccoons do not make good pets. It's interesting you say that because there are a ton of videos, especially on TikTok, of people with quote unquote pet raccoons. And I don't recommend it. But if you have a raccoon that's immature, that's younger than a year old, they're tame and you can handle them and they behave. But they will eventually start doing things like tearing stuff apart or gnawing on things or whatever. And as they get older, they become less tame. And you don't want to have a full-size raccoon in your house, for instance. I didn't spill, but I splashed. So, oh boy. Now my desk is going to be sticky for the next hour. JP says in German, the word raccoon is translated as Waschbar or washing bear, which makes sense. Don Store says, ever seen turkeys fight? They lock onto each other and they can fight for days. I've seen them facing off and stuff, but I always thought it was more of a ritual. I didn't know they actually fought. It's Not Me 07 missed the memo last week or the week before where I mentioned I bought a variety of cups in different colors and I rotate them now so as to not play favorites. Dan Boyd says raccoons are not rodents. Yeah, I know. They are more like bears. Well, they're not related to bears either. They're actually related more to, believe it or not, pandas. And pandas aren't bears. Raccoons do have that extra. It's not a thumb in a true thumb sense, but it's close. But when I said raccoons chewing on stuff, they do chew on stuff, not the way that rodents do, but they do chew on stuff. Because if they're trying to tear something open, they'll use, trust me, they will use their teeth. Cody Prine says raccoons are also known as trash pandas. Yeah. Reinhard Man says raccoons are vermin. Well, vermin is context. If raccoons are out in the woods minding their own business, they're not vermin. They're part of the balance of nature. Now, of course, if one gets into your house while you're gone and drinks some antifreeze and gets sick, yeah, you're gonna have a mess to clean up. But Bill Van Ram says the raccoon population has dropped dramatically since we have so many coyotes in the neighborhood now. The question is, do they really take them out or do they drive them away? Because raccoons can climb trees. Now, raccoons aren't fast runners. So if a raccoon is on the ground, it's in trouble. But it can climb a tree pretty quickly. Dan Boyd, are koalas bears? I don't think so. I think they're nicknamed koala bears only because we tend to do that all the time. Sub GR77, I am Groot. Oh. Sam, as I am, said visiting in Bremerton. Car parked in a lot. I left at 5 a.m. packed. My car sensed something. About 24 raccoons were in a semicircle staring at me. Somebody was feeding them. Oh yeah, no, that's the problem. And I've said this joke before, so I apologize, but I still think it's funny. If you start feeding raccoons, they don't view you as the nice guy who feeds us. They view you as the person keeping them from their food. We want more food. Carol Calkins says it in French. Raccoon is raton laveur. And is raton small rat or mouse, like Boca Raton? I could be wrong. Padre, have you ever read Where the Red Fern Grows? I don't think so. D. Corbett knows a guy had a run-in with a raccoon, one of 80 stitches in his face. Who? Matthew Hill, raccoons are not marsupials. Okay. Oh boy. There's a thing called Wikipedia, and you can check some of these things and figure it out. Thomas Caldwell, 74, morning. Have you ever sold the movie rights to any of the books you've written? What celebrity would you want to play you in a movie? Well, I'm not in any of my books yet. The only thing that came close on, I actually had a producer claim that he was going to try to get a documentary series made based on my American Murder Houses. And we did actually sign a deal on it, but I got no money for it. It was just an agreement that he had the right to pitch it. And if he found a buyer, then we would negotiate something. So I actually had a contract that said, we have the right to do this with your book, blah, blah, blah. That's who put that there. That's the only thing I've done that with. I'm not sure. I mean, do I have to stick with somebody who looks like me or not? Oh boy. D. Corbett said, lady said she had a squirrel in her attic, and the guy went up there to scare it out and wound up being a raccoon with a baby. Yeah, and the thing about it is that you can get the raccoon and the baby out. They didn't come in through the trap door on the bottom of the, attic floor, but there's going to be some way they got in from the outside that you should be able to seal up. But Southern Tauren, the quokka, is my spirit animal. I don't know if I pronounced it right or not, but it's a goofy little animal. I know what you're talking about. Sandra Jones says, I'll go more quickly. Apparently I had to come back because she made a comment somebody responded to. Oh, boy. Bill Van Ram, my neighbor took a picture of a coyote with a raccoon in its mouth midday. Okay, was a raccoon, though? Was it? It's possible it's roadkill, maybe. I'd like to think it was. Gilbert says koalas will occasionally fall out of trees like the iguanas, like when it gets cold. That's the funniest thing of all time. Is there's iguanas in Florida that grow huge. Head to tail this long, but the bulk of the body can be this long. Big, big things, and they love to just bask in the sun. Then occasionally they eat stuff and they wander real slow. But if you chase one, they'll either jump in the water or they'll climb a tree. And they'll actually get really, really cold temperatures. And they'll tell you, if you're outside, watch out for falling iguanas. Because they're reptiles. Their metabolism will slow as much as they can, and then they get cold and they lose their grip and they just fall. And they may or may not die in the process. Iguanas all over the ground. Sean Brock, The Rock, playing Steve Lehto, attorney at law. Oh, boy. Art S says you get Brad Pitt. I've liked most of his movies. Most. Ed Norton, The Prodigal Stranger. I can see Ed Norton, although I think he's a little thinner than I am. But that's okay. The camera adds 10 pounds. Larry's Diner saw Becoming Led Zeppelin the other night. It was no Hammer of the Gods. I've not seen either one, but I'll have to check that out because I'm fascinated by music history. Jerry C. James Spader, possibly? Yeah, Robert Redford's probably more of like, you can play my dad. I hope. Don Star, I see coyotes in LA, even in industrial areas. Thomas Caldwell, the low-flying owls might collide with falling iguanas. Can you imagine that? Because the low-flying owl sign that I saw originally was there because there were owls that nested, I believe, underground. I think they had little burrows or something. So you could have an owl coming in for a landing and then an iguana strike. It's like a bird strike. Bernadine Sackinger, Chris Hemsworth could play me. Yeah, the problem is I'd need a story, though. It could just be some guy who's a lawyer who shoots videos. David Peterson's, given your music preferences, your movie could have an awesome soundtrack, unless you ask the people underneath the orange juice video. Ooh, Sam Rockwell, sub GR77. Dennis Quaid, Jay Klein. Lewis Browning says Jude Law. Would he have an accent? Someone should do me, but with a British accent. Why not? Oh boy, Larry's Diner says Abe Vigoda is alive and well and living in my attic. But you realize that he's up to Jim Morrison, right? There's a really, really good two-part documentary called Laurel Canyon. I don't know where it appeared first, but it's on cable right now. I taped them and I watched them both, and I think it's 2 hours each, so about 4 hours. And it talks about the development of the music culture in Laurel Canyon. The Byrds, Love, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, all the different bands, Jackson Brown, Joni Mitchell, and all the stuff that happened in that like incubator of all that music and all the how they interacted and stuff. And it's absolutely amazing. 'Cause at one point in time, they're talking about Jim Morrison and the Doors, and they showed the footage of the performance he did, where he's out on stage, and apparently they were so convinced he's going to do something illegal. There's cops on stage watching him perform. And at one point in time, he just flops on the ground and he's like singing, like almost like Joe Cocker having like an epileptic seizure or something. And they didn't show him getting arrested, but he did get arrested. But I'm watching the footage, is going, what the? You pay to see the Doors, and up on stage is some guy flopping around on the ground and a bunch of cops. Oh. Kelikaku says the plot is a tow truck driver who gets mad at all the lemon cars he had to tow, and out of spite, he went to law school. Yeah, but there's got to be more to it. I think at night, don't have to cruise around town in some kind of ghost tow truck and seek revenge on somebody. Yeah, no? Robert Lee needs more cowbell. And Christopher Walken could play me. Sparing a Tom or sparing Adam. Hey, Steve, I emailed you about a store that wrongfully seized property I lawfully purchased when I brought it back in the store. I was wondering if you read it. I did not read it. Resend it unless you sent it in the last hour and 20 minutes. Roger Moore is Steve Lehto. Then people could argue which Steve Lehto do you like best, the Roger Moore or the Daniel Craig? Oh, Image Joe Craig grew up in Laurel Canyon. Did you really? Were there any famous houses near you that were lived in by famous people? You know, it's like I get him confused. Either Glenn Fry or somebody from the Eagles bought a house that used to be owned by one of the guys from the Birds. You know, and I mean, it's like it was so many different people up there that it was amazing. Spring Adam, what's your email address? Anybody used the wrong one? Well, oops. I don't think that would get to me to use that symbol. Steve at Lato'sLaw.com. Sean Connery is the original, Mark Smith says. He was good. But actually, my favorite, believe it or not, is Daniel Craig. I like the Daniel Craig, but I also think that the scripts are written differently. Some of the early Sean Connery ones, there's a reason Austin Powers movies are so funny. Oh, Thomas Caldwell, rest in peace, Gene Hackman. That is a crazy story. What they think happened to him and his wife. Very, very sad and crazy. MH08, Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still dead. Southern Torn Ryan Reynolds could play you. Ryan Reynolds. Oh, boy. Image Joe Craze says, yes, really, I've spent my life around tons of famous people. Alexander Ganaka. Moli, 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 moli. Once in a while, some of those jokes were beaten to death, but that's what made them so funny. So, oh boy. Doug Jones, how about a garage walk around? You'd be walking around 3 cars, a Jeep, a Cobra, and a Viper. Don't think it's that exciting, but Mark Smith, did they autopsy the dog? No, but I think the dog's cause of death was a little more obvious, but I could be wrong. Zach Larson, did you ever visit Jim Morrison's grave? No. I've been to Paris twice. And I visited another famous graveyard where Jean-Paul Sartre is buried along with a bunch of other people. But it was apparently not that one, is another one. And it's one of those things that didn't occur to me till later. And I'm not a huge Doors fan, but if I'd thought of it, I would have gone. But I remember walking through this beautiful cemetery and finding all these historic graves, and then realizing, oh, not everyone's here, of course. So the prodigal stranger says it would be exciting to those of us who don't have cobras and vipers. Well, no, I've done videos about the cobra and about the viper, and so to do a walk around about two cars I've already talked about seems to me to be a little bit overkill, but you never know. Maybe I should do another one if not enough people have seen them. Southern Torrent says in one of the Roger Moore Bond films, possibly Moonraker, there's a keypad to get in the door that made the same tones as from Close Encounters. Several people have now said they are doing an autopsy on the dog. Burning Sensation says, I've been to the Red Baron's grave in Wiesbaden. Really? Wow. That's a pretty cool one. There's so much history in Europe, compared to what. Don't get me wrong, we got history here too, but our history goes back, in Michigan, it barely goes back 200 years, so standard deviation. Show us your RV. Well, I've got a friend who's got a big old motor coach, one of the giant ones, and I keep thinking I should do a video and say I bought it, but I don't think I'd pull it off without laughing too much. Bob Blah Blah says it'd be fascinating to see all the intricacies of a 1998 Jeep. Now, there you go. There you go. I did wheel the Jeep out this morning, and it's a little on the dirty side, but that's what it looks like right there. That's dirt because I drove it one day when it was kind of. How about there we go. It wasn't raining out when I drove it home, but I had to drive it across a dirt road, and I got a little bit of dirt on it. And when Mark Lieberman, my friend, handled delivering it up here from JP, but JP, it was in immaculate, pristine condition when he gave it to the guy who brought it up to Mark, and then I went and picked it up from Mark. So there you go. So, yeah, Steve says you should rent your Cobra and Viper on Turo. That's the business plan I never understood. The prodigal stranger says, I heard the dog was locked in a cage. I believe there's more than one dog, but I could be wrong. So. Cody Prine says every movie should have at least one well-placed Wilhelm scream. Is that the scream they keep using over and over again of a guy falling, and they just use the same scream because it's easier than doing something else? Burning Sensation says Jeeps aren't supposed to be clean. That's true. Claude McKenzie, my Jeep has round headlights. I did own one that had squares a long time ago. And it's an idea that didn't take for obvious reasons. They look ugly. Gilbert says you got to get a power washer now. Dirt will clog stuff up. So Torrance says I'd prefer the goofy scream. Art S says do a walkthrough of your friend's motor coach with him explaining the maintenance involved in each part. Well, it's more a matter of just the cost involved, especially with the tires and the axles, and a vehicle that many tires costs a lot when you got to do stuff with the tires. Hey, Gilbert's checking out. Everyone got to go. Thank you for being here, my friend. I'll talk to you soon, I hope. Richard Tuharoon says 1 dog in a box, 2 dogs running around. The dog that died had a procedure. Okay. Sean Brock says, I'm very surprised that Hackman did not have some sort of people helping him all the time in his advanced stage. I believe the situation was that his wife took care of him, and it was kind of the thing, like hey, she takes care of him, and he doesn't need more help. So, Kelakaku, does your Jeep have a CB radio? And if not, why not? Although 98, I still don't think of that as the CB era, right? But there's all kinds of stuff you can get for them. Hertz is selling off a majority of their EVs dirt cheap. How many of those will end up being reported stolen and lead to arrests? I'd say about half get reported stolen, and about a half of those lead to arrests. So 25%. just speculation on my part. Yeah, Johnny Bravo says, you want a Jeep expert, talk to Dennis Collins. Dennis Collins, of course, is a good friend of Richard Rawlings over there at Fast and Loud. And he's a Jeep guy. I know that. Sparing Adams says, I resent the email. Okay. Well, let's see what happens here. Check here. I don't see it. Hang on. Let's check the trash. Let's check the spam. Nope, not my spam. It's not my trash. Huh. I'm not seeing it, but I'll look later. Maybe I got to look harder. I don't know. Oh, Dan Boyd says Dennis Collins premieres a video every Friday at 1:00 Eastern Standard Time. I'll have to check that out. I've seen his videos, and I know Fast and Loud, I think, just releases videos now directly to YouTube instead of putting them on TV. But it's the guy knows his cars, obviously. Burning Sensations says you can always get the spare tire cover. Says flip me over if you can read this. That's always a question. What do you put in the back of the Jeep? Do you put a cover on the tire? Do you put like Jeep? Or do you put something else? Steve says, I know a guy who rented a car from Hertz and had no problems. That should be a story. You liar. That's the weird thing, is that you understand that for something to make the news, it happens one time out of every 10,000, but it makes the news. That means 9,999 times it didn't happen. But the one time it happens, especially to you, then it's a big deal. But the guy from Turo who gave those numbers and said, we only have like this percentage fraction of a percent, still came up to like 27,000 people having problems. Art S says, one way to tell how old people are is when you hear the word Newman. Do they think Paul Newman or Newman from Seinfeld? Oh, boy. Dan Boyd says Dennis's videos are always of him going to buy cars and ends with a restaurant meal. Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos of him and also Richard Rawlings going to buy cars. They'll often buy big collections and stuff. And I'm always wondering how real some of those negotiations are when they give the actual numbers. Because it seems to me a lot of people be like, hey, look, I don't mind selling you my car collection, but can we not put the number out there? Because you know darn well that people are going to be calling, you sold that too cheaply. That guy ripped you off, So Daniel Kester's favorite CB was the old Lafayette. I never actually had a CB. I had walkie-talkies when I was a little kid. They had a range of about 100 feet. You'd actually yell more clearly. Steve Hill, my neighbor does animal rescue. Young raccoons are cute. Oh, yeah, they are. Image Doe Cray, have you ever had a decision to set a precedent? If you were to go to the state of Michigan's Court of Appeals, you'll find my name as counsel working on a case called Ayer versus Ford. Another attorney that I worked with was the lead counsel on it. But like I was there at the oral arguments and stuff. And then I had a couple other cases, including some very, very strange ones. And I had a case called Roan versus Murray, Roan, Roan versus Murray. It's an Article 9 UCC case, which is one of the most obscure sections of the UCC. And it got reported in a local legal newspaper called the Legal News, or maybe in a Lawyer's Weekly, I forgot which one, did an article about it. And I got like 3 phone calls from guys who handled Article 9 cases. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't know you existed. We need to get together. And I go, why? And they're like, so few people do these cases. I'm like, I know. I don't do them either. Never did another one. But I won. So that's pretty cool. Johnny Bravo says he never mentions the price. Dennis doesn't? Because I know that Richard Rawlings does. I've seen him do it before. G Keyman 565. Hello, friends. Back from the flea market. I found a few things. Which flea market did you go to? We're getting that time of the year where there's gonna be these, outdoor junk sales. Oh boy. Ember Miss 69. Random question. What'd you have for dinner last night? I had a bowl of cereal. I actually ate at Red Robin. I haven't been to a Red Robin in a long time. I'm like, hey, Red Robin sounds good. They've got good hamburgers there. I mean, I was actually like, whoa. I was blown away. I'll go back again soon. Ed G, I'm waiting for a hurt story of a person getting arrested who never rented a car. I believe that's happened because I believe somebody bought a former Hertz rental car as just a used car. It had been taken out of the rental service. They bought the car. They're driving down the road. They get pulled over and yes, this is a stolen car. Get out. But yeah. G Keyman, Lapeer Center. Okay, so it's just an all-purpose flea market for. I got to get more in tune with these things. You can find some pretty cool stuff. Somebody sent me a photograph they took at an antique electronics show from someplace like in Waterford, like 3 months ago, and I'm like, how did I not know about this? They had microphones and cameras. I'm like, I need to be there, and it was closing like an hour later. And like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Alexander Ganakis says they bring the fries slow on purpose. Oh, no, absolutely. That's one of the things that bothers me is they advertise bottomless refills. You want more fries, we'll bring you more fries. You ask for more fries, the waitress disappears. And then she comes back with a big bowl that's got like 4 fries in it. And you're like, okay, can I have some more? She'll be gone for half an hour. So Daniel Castro says, don't try the lasagna anytime soon. I never imagined that story would have the legs, as we say in the business. By the way, I had a lot of people ask me about the restaurant. I've now publicly disclosed that was a Carrabba's. That was not an Olive Garden. It was not what's the other one? But it was a Carrabba's. It was a Carrabba's, and it was in Florida. And I was there with there was 4 of us, and I was brought lasagna that was so obviously frozen, like they forgot to put it in the microwave. The woman's like, "Oh no, this is all fresh. We'll just put it back in the oven for a few minutes." I'm like, "That's frozen." I'm hitting it with my fork. I'm scared I'm gonna chip something off and get a chip in my eye or something. Bob Lablas' Red Robin announced 70 stores closing. I got there just in time. That's so sad. Thomas Caldwell says her best Red Robin burger has a fried egg on it. I didn't have that, but I had another one. Offensively Normal went to Costco this morning while listening, apparently, and then a quick stop at the grocery. DePaul 31 says lots of ham radio flea markets around, probably also in Michigan. Yeah, you probably get a lot of electronics and something like that too. Oh, G Keyman 565 says the Lapeer Center building every Sunday from 8:30 till 2. Right when I'm doing a show. Pod races every year. Georgia has yard sales the entire length of Highway 341 called Peaches to Beaches. I live on one of the towns along the route. There's a couple of those here in Michigan. There's that road that goes across the bottom that says 31. And they often have like this long running rummage sale, garage sale, driveway sale all along there. So Alexander Ganaka, what are the legal views on White Castle? I haven't had White Castle since about 1979. I don't like the whole notion that our food is inexpensive. It's just cheap food. But you can buy it by the sack. Like I don't want to be buying my food by the sack because it's so cheap. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. Image Doe Cray, yeah, I'm a big In-N-Out fan. I love In-N-Out. Now I will admit that In-N-Out burgers are probably just in the same class as say Culver's. But the thing is that we don't have In-N-Outs in the Midwest yet. And but I there's a couple Culvers that I know about. In fact, the woman who cuts my hair, there's a Culver's right behind her building, and occasionally if I get there early, I hit Culver's first. And every time I'm there, I'm like, wow, this is a good burger. So, Keeger 4 official, are there any cars you'd purchase when they depreciate enough, like the C8 Corvette? I like the C8 Corvette. I'm not really sure. It's not so much price keeping me from buying any cars. Right now, I ran out of space. I purposely bought the Jeep to fill the last space I had, so I'm not tempted to buy more cars. But I am wondering if I was to buy another car, I'd probably like build a clone of a Dodge Charger Daytona or a Superbird because I could get one, build it relatively cheaply, not feel bad about driving it. Aaron Freeman says Michelle Trachtenberg was young and beautiful, and she passed away. Yeah, and that was a crazy one because I had no idea, and most people didn't, that she had health issues. And she's, of course, best known as the little sister on Buffy the Vampire Slayer in later episodes. And she's also in a wonderful movie called Eurotrip. If you have not seen Eurotrip, I've mentioned it several times. I've been hinting to you people, go see Eurotrip. I'm sure you can find it online someplace. Eurotrip. It's a comedy. It's kind of silly, but it builds and it is very, very funny. It was underrated. I'm not sure why it didn't do that well, but I remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, why did I never hear this? And I watched it again. I've now found there's a subculture of people who are familiar with it, like, oh, you like Eurotrip too. Steve Hill says that I helped convert a Red Robin into a Longhorn Steakhouse in Miami. Wow. So Longhorn is on the rise and Red Robin is on the down low. Alexander Ganakis' Denny's is a sit-down White Castle. I'll tell you right now, I will not eat at Denny's. I don't. I'll go hungry. I don't care. I had several bad experiences at Denny's, and the last one I said never again, never again. I don't care if they change owners. I don't care if they actually ran an advertising campaign saying Steve Lehto, we're sorry. I would not go there. I would not go there. I hate Denny's. I hate them. Yes. I'm not trying to be subtle here. I hate Denny's. Steve G. Scotty doesn't know. Not Scott. Scotty. Scotty doesn't know. One of the best running jokes ever done in any comedy. Oh, I'll set it up for you. There's a guy in the movie named Scotty, and Scotty's got a hot girlfriend, and they graduate high school. And while they're talking about what they're going to do after high school, she breaks up with him. So Scotty goes to a party that night where all the kids from high school are at, and a band gets up on stage and starts singing a song called Scotty Doesn't Know. And the song is about him and his ex-girlfriend. Matt Damon plays the lead singer of the band. Just a weird little cameo. And Scotty's ex-girlfriend jumps up on stage and starts making out with him while he's singing. And the whole song is about how she's been cheating on him the whole time with this guy, and Scotty doesn't know. And the reason it's funny is the song keeps popping up in different contexts and different iterations throughout the movie. At one point, the guy has a ringtone on his phone. Oh, Jason Finch, Dr. Salty. I loved Eurotrip. Sub GR. Yeah, Matt Damon is in Eurotrip, like I said. Oh. Offensively normal. How do you feel about IHOP? IHOP is one of those places that to me is always part of like background. I forget they're even there. I had an IHOP that was literally 100 yards from an office, and I only ate there once because someone came to visit and goes, "Hey, let's go do IHOP." And I'm like, "Where's that?" And they go, "It's right there." So it's actually more about a mile, half mile. Don't tell Scotty. Art asks, what do you think about Waffle House? Now, here's the thing. I've never eaten at a Waffle House. Now, I'm not from down south. We don't have Waffle Houses up here. I see them when I drive like up and down 75. And somehow Waffle Houses are almost always in the news, at least in the Midwest, because someone got in a fist fight either inside the Waffle House and they're famous, or just a big old brawl out in the parking lot. Now, don't get me wrong. In the Midwest, we do that in White Castles. But I've always thought the Waffle House was a cross between a White Castle and an IHOP, but for fighting. Oh, Sun Torn, IHOP versus Cracker Barrel. I've only eaten a Cracker Barrel once or twice, and I just thought it was weird. The whole thing about like there's like spinning wheels in the waiting room. Should I sit down and like spin myself some yarn before I go and eat? Huh? Yeah, Steve says, remember that IHOP stands for International House of Pancakes. What's so international about it? Thomas Caldwell, they say doctors make the worst patients. Any funny stories about representing another lawyer or when you need an attorney? I'll tell you the worst example of that is I had a case where I always tell myself, don't do divorce. And a friend of mine, who I owed a favor to, said, Steve, I need you to handle this. It's a non-contested divorce. It's a real easy thing. The woman you're going to be representing, the soon-to-be ex-wife, very, very pleasant, charming woman. She'll pay you. It's a no-brainer. So I file an appearance. I get involved, and I discover that the husband she's trying to cut loose is an attorney representing himself. Every phone call I had with the guy, he would try to turn into like an hour-long phone calls. He thought I was billing his client by the hour, which I wasn't. And he would just do stupid stuff and say stupid things. And at one point in time, I said, until you hire an attorney, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. You want to communicate with me, write to me or email me, but I'm not talking to you anymore. It's a waste of my time. If you hire an attorney, have them call me. And there were a couple occasions we were in court. It's very obvious what he was doing is being a pain. And I actually said that to a judge. I said, unfortunately, he really needs to hire an attorney. And the judge looks at the other guy, and the guy goes, well, I am an attorney. And I go, still, he needs to hire an attorney. Oh, the case got resolved, but it was a pain. It was a pain. Dan Boyd says IHOP used to have like 10 or 15 different types of syrups on the table. And they're from like different countries, right? like Belgian syrup and like Lithuanian syrup. Kelakakis, what about the original pancake house? Well, the problem is I can tell you was like 35 different original pancake houses, and they have different logos and everything. So I don't know if they're related or not. I think it's one of those things that didn't get trademarked in time or something. Art S says International House Pancakes can be international because they've got locations in Canada. Southern Torrance is not sure what Cracker Barrel you went to. The ones I've been in, half the place is a gift store. That's what I'm talking about. There's like spinning wheels and rocking chairs and stuff. It's like they're trying to make you think you're in Mayberry or something. Daniel Kessler says, how about Crazy Town? You hired an attorney. Yeah, I did. He did a great job, got the case thrown out. I have a sneaky feeling, Kalakaku, that in Belgium, they don't actually eat Belgian pancakes or Belgian waffles. I think somebody just said this will be our excuse to put whipped cream on a waffle. We'll call it Belgian. Oh, if it's Belgian, it has to be okay. It's probably good for you, too. Bill Van Ram says In-N-Out doesn't do DoorDash. You know, I'm not sure how I'd enjoy that kind of fast food brought to me if it took them like 15, 20 minutes to get it to my house. That's what I'd wonder about. Robert Buckles says IHOP is in 7 countries worldwide. You only got to be in 2 to be international, right? Cody Prine says, well, let's be honest, once you say maple syrup. Paul, I'm from Belgium. We just call them pancakes. Robert Buckles says 1,750 IHOP restaurants worldwide, including restaurants in all 50 U.S. states, Puerto Rico, Guam, and several other countries. I want to go to Guam and eat an IHOP. Can someone please explain to me what Carl's Jr. means? Or Carl Jr.'s or what? Carl's Jr.? Why do they call it Carl's? Why is it Carl's Jr.? Was there a Carl's Senior? I never. And then of course Big Boy, which is a franchise, or Elias Big Boys in the Midwest, Elias Brothers. And then of course there's Bob's out west, but again that's because different franchise people. So Sub GR one time I went to Cracker Barrel and they dropped hot food on me and my parents. They got all of you. Oh boy. Yeah, so Cody Prine, there was a Carl Sr., but he died of a... No, I'm talking about the name of the restaurant is Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. what? Why did they just call it Carl's? You know? Oh boy. So Old Paint 71 says Carl's Jr. is because it was a fast food variant of his restaurant. So there was a Carl's restaurant. There was like a sit-down place. And then he had a fast food variant called Carl's Jr. Okay, that makes sense. But I've asked this question to people and they're like, oh, that's what it's called. All I know is they got the girls in bikinis on TV ads. Oh. Johnny Z. Fradley says Company Man on YouTube has the Carl's Jr. story. I'll have to check that out. I've watched a lot of his videos. He's got kind of an interesting delivery. Now, Alexander Ganaka didn't like Long John Silver's. What didn't you like about him? Although I'll admit, I used to go there all the time to get the chicken tenders, the chicken fingers. I forgot they called them, but I didn't get the fish. Douglas Gaxiola says the larger Carl's was a barbecue place. The juniors are smaller fast food places. Okay. And Old Paint says Carl's Drive-In Barbecue was the original. Carl Karcher was the owner. Okay. Chicken Planks. Cody Prine. Boom. And I'll tell you right now, there is a Long John Silver's in down near Berrien Springs. I'm trying to remember if it's in Berrien Springs or not, but I used to go there when I lived in Eau Claire, Michigan. And then there also was one in Flint, but it burned down over by the mall, Genesee Valley. And that mall is only one step away from being a wasteland. That may have been rebuilt, but I'm not quite sure. Oh, Kelly Kincaid, I missed Dog and Suds root beer. Dog and Suds was a cheap knockoff of A&W. And I know where there's a Dog and Suds that literally just painted over the sign and became something else because they decided, like, we can make hot dogs. Like, we don't need to be paying a franchise fee to anybody. Steve says, it's bad when Hooters is going bankrupt. Yeah, but have you ever eaten at a Hooters? I'm just telling you. Just Jazzy says they rebuilt the Long John Silver's in Flint. Good to know. I may have to swing by there one day. It's not that far off the expressway. It's not far from the airport either. Yeah, Johnny Bravo, Long John Silver's pretty much closed here. I forgot how many locations they had. They closed a vast majority of them. Partly the problem was the rising cost of fish, the Atlantic cod industry. I know that some franchise owner with A&W bought a bunch of them and merged them so there'd be one building, A&W and Long John Silver's. And there's one of those in Houghton, Michigan, a couple miles away from Michigan Tech. And I used to go there whenever I was in town. And I went by there one day and they're gone. Building's there, but it's empty now. So, Dan Boyd, there was a Dog and Suds in Steubenville in the 70s, right off the Interstate 70. Jay Klein points out that Hooters is actually not good food. And so that really is the problem. Offensively, Normal says, hey, they could be going bust. But Southern Torch says no one goes there for the food. But the problem is, if the food is no good, you're only going for the scenery, shall we say. What do you do if the scenery is no good? Because that's the one thing. I've been to a Hooters where I'm like, I'd pay more money to see some better food. This ain't working. Oh. Johnny Bravo, when you're going down 75 through, is it Lima, Ohio or Lima, Ohio? You have to stop for a Cupie's burger. Never heard of it. Image Del Cray. I remember when Wiener Schnitzel was Der Wiener Schnitzel. What happened to that? Oh, what happened to Der? Too many Americans didn't know what it meant. They're somehow offended by it. Oh. Rody, Z, KFC, Taco Bell, and I think Domino's has combined locations in Indiana. That's interesting. Johnny Z. Bradley says it's Lima, Ohio. Lima. It's like Lima, Peru, though, right? I'll never remember. Oh, boy. Richard Terhune says Carl's had the hot dog stand started in 41 before his restaurant. And Jay Klein says, hey, it's Lima or Lima. Who cares? Oh, Taco Cat. If you want scenery, the Waffle House is the place to be. Always make bets on whether the waitress had more teeth or tattoos. Oh, boy. We could go off some really ugly tangents, but hey, it's a Sunday. We won't do that. Oh. Harry Seldon Portillo's also started as a hot dog stand. I've eaten there before. It's like a Chicago thing, right? Kellicoco, do they have Anderson's Pea Soup Restaurant in Michigan? Never heard of it. Lee Kincaid said, I used to work with a team, and the team leader, who was a woman, would insist we do team lunches at Hooters And I did enjoy the buffalo shrimp. Yeah, I've known people who say, let's go there. It's a fun place to have lunch, So you go, and I don't know. Like I said, I thought the food was below the quality it should have been. Like it should have been just a little bit better. Because when it's so bad that no one can claim they're going there for the food, you'll get people who can't go. But if a guy can go home and say, look, I go there because the food is good, well, you might be able to get away with it. Kelikakis says it's Lima, not Lima. Why don't you people get together and discuss this? JJ says Twin Peaks is like Hooters with better food. There's a couple other bars that are like that have come along to try to knock that off. I do believe of those groups, of those ones I've seen, Hooters appears to be the most dated in terms of like they're kind of coasting on the fact that they just had the reputation. So I am McNathan says, what about Milan, Michigan versus Milan, Italy? I'm guessing. Tomato, Southern Torn. Now, you don't understand. I can mispronounce something that actually has several pronunciations, as we all know, and people go insane about it. So Boomer Golden Corral. Get your feedback on. Johnny Z says Hooters and Twin Peaks CEOs are friends. Do they start out as friends or become friends because they're in the same business? I'm curious. Once in a while, you hear about some guy who works at a company and goes, I don't think they're doing it right. And he'll go off and start his own company that competes with it. So, yeah, Harry Seldon, Tilted Kilt one, and Knockouts in the Chicago area. I've never been to any of those either. I remember seeing on Undercover Boss, a guy went undercover at one of those Tilted Kilt, Twin Peaks kind of places. And the first thing you notice, he got there and they're all like, they weren't wearing what they're supposed to be wearing. He's like, why are they not wearing the outfits? Oh, they don't like them. So guys come in and the waitresses are just dressed normal. Wait, what? Alexander Ganok, when's the last time you had a Wendy's baked potato? I've had them before, but I never did one through a drive-through. I ate it in the car. Because there are some things you just can't eat in a car, and one of them is a baked potato. Oh boy. Kelly Kincaid says those are called restaurants, and there's even a trade association for them. Of course there is. Padre says there is a Milan in Georgia is pronounced Milan. Well, that's how it is in Michigan too, Milan, Michigan. I wore a shirt on camera earlier this week that had a little M right here from Milan Dragway, which is over here somewhere. MHOA says you can eat a baked potato while driving. I'm not driving. Don't get me wrong. I've got no problem steering with my knee while I eat two-handed. Never in front of a police officer. But a baked potato just seems a little too complicated and not worth the effort. There's so many other things you can get that are easier to eat while driving, such as a pasty, which we talked about earlier. Zafar Syed has just checked in and said howdy and howdy as well. We've been here now for 2 hours and 9 minutes. Oh boy. And Joe Pangea, good morning from South Australia. It's 5:32 in the morning. 5:32. Gets off by half an hour. Sub GR says, speaking of bars, there's a bar in Burton, Michigan, and it's famous, by the way. It's got a sign out front that says BJ's Bar, dancing, sandwiches. But the way it's written on the sign and on the wall, it implies that there's inside dancing sandwiches. And they painted a mural on the side of the building of a bunch of sandwiches dancing. And every like month or two, someone will revive the picture on Twitter and it'll go viral again. Oh my God, there's this bar in Michigan with dancing sandwiches. Now a curmudgeon says, am I the last message read? You could be unless someone tops it in the next 30 seconds. Sparing a Tom says, I wish we could talk about the UCC instead of restaurants. What's there to talk about with the UCC? I took classes on the Uniform Commercial Code in law school. I've read books on it. I've tried cases involving it. It's more fun to talk about restaurants. Zach Larson, is the snow gone in Lower Michigan? Yes. Even yesterday, I was walking my property and I found a few spots with like a hole in the ground. There's still snow in it. It's all gone now. But it is 52 degrees outside right now. I show 3:04 by the big clock on the wall, which I put a picture of in the video today. So I will have to sign off now because I'm getting near the end of my tether, as they say. I will see you guys, as I always do, next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, videos on the main channel. Don't forget about the backup channel, second channel. I put up a book report, a bunch of books I read recently, that kind of thing. And so otherwise, thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you had a good time. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.